On Christmas Eve, 1968, astronaut Bill Anders snapped a photo of the Earth as Apollo 8 orbited the moon. Those three guys were surprised to see from their eyes a planet looked like an Earthrise, a blue orb hovering over the moon's gray horizon with deep oceans and silver skies. It was our world's first glance at itself, a first chance to see a shared reality, a declared stance, and a commonality, a glimpse into our planet's mirror. And as threats drew nearer, our own urgency became clearer as we realized that we hold nothing dearer than this floating body we all call home. We've known that we're caught in the throes of climactic changes some say will just go away, while some simply pray to survive another day. For it is the obscure, the oppressed, the poor who, when the disaster is declared done, still suffer more than anyone. Climate change is the single greatest challenge of our time. Of this, you're certainly aware. It's saddening, but I cannot spare you from knowing an inconvenient fact, because it's getting the facts straight that gets us to act and not to wait. So I tell you this not to scare you, but to prepare you, to dare you to dream a different reality where, despite disparities, we all care to protect this world, this riddled blue marvel, this little true marvel, to master the verve and the nerve to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve, to protect, to preserve that one and only home that is ours. To use your unique power to give next generations the planet they deserve. We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth. And while this is a training in sustaining the future of our planet, there is no rehearsal. The time is now, because the reversal of harm and protection of a future so universal should be anything but controversial. So, Earth, pale blue dots, we will fail you not. Just as we chose to go to the moon, we know it's never too soon to choose hope. We choose to do more than cope with climate change. We choose to end it. We refuse to lose. We do this and more, not because it's very easy or nice, but because it is necessary. Because with every dawn, we carry the weight of the fates of this celestial body orbiting a star. And as heavy as that weight sounded, it doesn't hold us down, but it keeps us grounded, steady, ready, because an environmental movement of this size is simply another form of an Earthrise. To see it, close your eyes, visualize that all of us in this room and outside of these walls or in these halls, all of us change makers, or in a spacecraft floating like a silver raft in space, and we see the face of a planet anew. We relish the view, we witness its round green and brilliant blue, which inspires us to ask deeply, wholly, what can we do? Open your eyes, know the future of this wise planet is right in sight, right in all of us. Trust this earth uprising, all of us bring light to exciting solutions never tried before, for it is our hope that implores us at our uncompromising core to keep rising up for an earth more than worth fighting for.
So the next question is, what can we do? And now we're going to get into a little bit of that. We're going to start with Marilyn, who's going to talk about a resolution that's being put together for the Synod to do a covenant with creation.
Thank heavens for a magical word. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So powerful. Okay, this is just a little bit about what the church is doing in terms of creation care at the local level, now trying to extend to the local level. And this is in the form of a resolution that was created by the church in Port Angeles and the pastor there. And we have signed on to this. And I'll explain a little bit how this works when in terms of our synod governance. So a resolution at Synod Assembly, which is, I know there are a lot of people that don't necessarily have Lutheran backgrounds, and that's why I'm explaining this. Sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 1 year. The synods in the state of, or in our area get together and with representatives, and actually in another week, we're going to be electing our representatives this year at a special meeting, I think next week. So they get together, each church is allowed, depending on the size of the church, lay representatives as well as the clergy. And it really is the policy-making body of the church and has some influence then on the national church, or what's called the church-wide assembly. So a resolution in the ELCA is a consideration, a request for consideration by the ELCA. So in other words, this resolution, to which we've signed in solidarity with the Port Angeles Church, which is a cool thing. We're one of the signers, and this is going to go to our Synod Assembly in a few weeks. So it is a request for consideration by the Synod, and if it is adopted by the Synod, it may be submitted to the General Assembly of the church, or it might just be for the Synod and all the churches within that Synod. So that's what a resolution is. It's a request for consideration. So please think about this and consider it. So this resolution is a resolution to action, really, to have all of the churches within the Synod basically covenant to do something about what the church has already said is important. So there are really three things. There is a mission statement, which commits the Synod to creation care. There is also the creation care in the social statement of caring for creation churchwide, which was adopted in 1993. So way back in 1993, which is a long time ago, the church was thinking about the importance of caring for creation. And then last year in Churchwide Assembly 2022, this is huge. There was a resolution at that point adopted by Churchwide Assembly that there would be a 50% reduction of net greenhouse gas by 2030 and a long-range goal of net zero emissions by 2050. That the church would be committed to aid in that goal. That the church thought that was an important goal, and the churches and all the churches within the churchwide should consider this to be a goal. So this is the resolution as it is written, that the Synod office and congregations commit to signing and implementing the covenant to care for creation provided by Lutherans Restoring Creation as steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and care for creation. And there's a link there. And if you went to the website of Lutherans Restoring Creation, you would see a little bit about this churchwide. And this is kind of a national model. What's happening at Port Angeles, which we've already signed on, is kind of a leader in terms of what is happening at the national church, that we need to commit to this. The churchwide has already said we need to do this now. And so I chose this slide because of the weaving on the left-hand side, that we are a church that is woven into a larger body, that we are a little small band of people, but there is a larger band, and woven together, we can make a difference. And this is what is really important about this, is that we have taken a stand that says, this is important. We need to work to do this. We need to take action to do this. We can't just talk about it. We need to take action. So I'm going to commit that website to you, the Lutheran Restoring Creation That's a subsidiary of the National Church, and it's an important website in terms of what the church is doing to have this happen. So the implications of this, first of all, there's no financial impact in terms of it's not going to cost the Synod money. It's how much there's not a budget connected to it. It's really up to the local congregations and our local Synod to decide how important is this, and are we going to commit any dollars to it. But there's no budget as such attached to it. In terms of who is responsible, everyone is responsible. And I want to read this. It says, changing our mindsets in regard to sustainable living is an individual responsibility for every individual person of faith. However, Synod and church communities can choose to assign people responsible for implementation in each ministry as they see fit. And we are really ahead of that game in terms of our green team and in terms of what we've already committed to do and our steps in getting there. And this Lent on Wednesday nights, the theme during Lent is simplicity and living more simply that others may simply live. So that is, I think, something that we are ahead of the game on this. And how does this resolution enhance and forward the vision of the church and our Synod? As laid out, and I'm reading again from the Port Angela statement, as laid out in the whereas section, our church is committed to creation care in general and greenhouse gas reduction specifically on the national, synodical, and sometimes also congregational level. The signing of the covenants will make this commitment visible also for other church bodies and communities. The covenant provides guidelines as to how to do the needed work. Though Lutheran Restoring Creation and by acting through, Lutheran Restoring Creation and by acting on the Synod level, we can combine our efforts and make them more effective. So this is that weaving together, that is joining together, and we've already joined we've signed this. So when this goes to the Synod, when the Synod assembly meets, and this resolution is presented at the Synod level, we are one of the signers already on this resolution. So our name as Agnus Dei Lutheran Church is on the resolution as one of the sponsors of the resolution. Yes.
Is this a commitment for the Synod, or the churches, or for individuals?
All three. All three. So this is
action would be very different.
pardon?
The plan of action on the Synod level, the national church, the Synod level, and the individual would be very different.
Yes. Yes, they're not going to be the same, but it is really a covenant. This is saying, as a church, we care about this, we think it's important, and we are going to take action in the ways that we can do that effectively. The Synod will do the same. The national church has already said this is important. So this is really, I think, important in the sense that we can see that the church has deemed this to be significant, and we now need to, we think it's significant, now what are we going to do? So hopefully from this will come more action things at the national as well as the Synod as well as the local level. That the time is, as Amanda Corman so eloquently said, the time is now for us to, this is full, the church-wide says a long-range goal of net zero emissions by 2050. Well, we're not going to any of us be around at that point, but our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren both. So it's
over 30 is doable, and might be.
Yeah, 2030 is 50% reduction. So
I think kind of the goal was that the Synod would create or put together the resources for congregations to be able to draw upon to help a process of supporting creation. So that's kind of the Synod's role.
True. You know, band together with each other and with the greater church. That's the weaving.
Yep. Were there any other questions regarding that?
So we've signed it. It was quite a process for us to sign it.
We had to go through a lot of church rules, stupidity, stupidity, in order to, I believe in simple governance. Sometimes our government is like, really, you have to do this, but we did it, so.
How many other churches signed on as supporting congregations?
I don't know the answer to that question, and I was actually gonna call her and find it out, but I forgot about it yesterday, so. I'm not sure, but that's a really good question, and I am gonna find that out.
Okay, thank you, Marilyn. The next part of our Green Team Forum will be to talk about the theme for Lent that the Green Team has suggested and which will be implemented on the 5 soup, supper, Celtic evening liturgy worships that are going to be starting next Wednesday. So we want to talk a little bit about what is meant by simpler living, because there could be some misunderstandings. And we want to clarify what that has meant. I have enjoyed reading 2 books. One of these is George's book, Voluntary Simplicity by Dwayne Elgin. The other one is mine, so I can mark it all up. Simpler Living, Compassionate Life, a Christian Perspective. Voluntary simplicity is actually a secular idea, which doesn't mean we don't go along with it. It's certainly grounded in the understanding that Amanda Gorman so exquisitely put before us, the inconvenient truth of what we are facing in terms of the devastation of our planet and how we have caused that by our lifestyles. When you add the Christian perspective, simpler living, compassionate life, it taps into the very faith that we claim to add on to the secular understanding of where we are on our planet. So we are in Lent, which is a time of reflection, introspection, time to ask ourselves questions about how we are leading our lives. What is the path we are on? If we examine our lives, what do we see that is important to us? Are we acting on the values that we say are most important? What are our intentions? And do we act on those intentions? How does care of God's creation fit into your daily life? Is it on your radar as you go about your morning, afternoons, and evenings? Lent is a good time to ask ourselves these challenging questions. So I would like to present some ideas, and I want to say, I don't have this all down. And as I was reading and preparing this, I thought, wow, there are some people who are really down the path farther than I am in implementing. I can think as I look at your faces, what some of you are doing that I find really admirable. So I am not an expert. I am just going to convey what this lifestyle of simpler living means. And then we will consider how we might do some of the things, and we will go on from there about what can be done. So we start with the awe and wonder of the beauty and complexity of the natural world is a gift from God. And I have to say, we in the Northwest are so lucky because really we just have to look outside our doors. There is the beauty all around us. This happens to be a photo of Cannon Beach, which I loved as a child growing up in Portland. But all of us have beauty all around to remind us. So as Christians, these are things that we hold to be true. We respond with a deep regard for the natural world. We worship God by caring for creation. And I want to add that I really like that thought because it's like, okay, on a Tuesday, there's something that I can do that is worshiping God. And in terms of a motivation for caring for creation, we are worshiping God by our actions. I really like that concept. And we are called to a love of the earth community in all its complexity and beauty. So by earth community, we can think of the people, We can think of plants, animals, everything about the earth is the community that we are called to love. Growing up, I think I thought, well, we have to love people. That stopped there. And it was later that I realized that the earth community is interwoven, intricate web of, of influence, and the health of one part of our earth community deeply affects a part of every other part of it. So we see the climate crisis as moral and economic injustice. So let's think about that in a minute. Environmental injustice shows us that those who suffer the most, and this is true around our planet right now, those who suffer the most have been the least of those who caused it. We who caused the most of it are suffering the least. And that is environmental injustice. And secondly, we know that the most impacted are those with the least voice, which is a second way of environmental injustice, that the poor, the future generations, and all of non-human life have the least voice in what can be done. We agree with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So our title for our Lenten theme, Simpler Life, Compassionate Living. Let's think about this environmental injustice. What would compassionate living bring out in us? And these are some thoughts that I picked up. A concern for the world's poor and hungry, a sense of kinship with all the peoples of the world, a concern for social justice and equity in the use of the world's resources, and a concern for saving animals and plants from extinction. So the concept of environmental injustice.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about this in terms of, and you've probably seen some of the pictures of Pakistan, just, thousands of acres of farmland destroyed by floods, and people being hungry, people not being able to cultivate their crops because of the horrible flooding that went on for so long. And Pakistan is one of the very poorest countries in the world that contributes the least to the problems in terms of greenhouse gases that is causing all of this climate change. But these people are suffering terribly. So I think it's one of the best examples I could think of this injustice. They do not deserve to have their crops destroyed, but that's what's happening. And we are the ones that have perpetuated that.
Thank you. That's really an excellent example. So let's look at what is meant by simpler living or voluntary simplicity. We'll talk about what this is as a lifestyle, kind of in the theoretical, and then later, and we'll also talk about what it is not. And then later on, we'll talk about what we might do to implement this. So it's a way of life characterized by ecological awareness, frugal consumption, and personal growth. And Dwayne Elgin, who wrote this Voluntary Simplicity, says, it's making choices toward a way of life that is outwardly simple, but this is important, inwardly rich. And we'll try to stress that during our Lenten evenings. It's a lifestyle choice that minimizes needless consumption of material goods and the pursuit of wealth for its own sake. Simple living means trying to avoid needless distractions and busyness, and I would add complications and clutter. It is striving to live intentionally, deliberately, and purposefully. It is living consciously toward our most authentic selves. So let's stop for a minute. Our most authentic self is who we really are. And part of the questions we could ask ourselves is who I am affected, influenced by all the cultural messages of buy more. How much is our authentic self, who we really are? How much of it, we can ask ourselves, is what we have absorbed through the cultural messages of consumerism? So going on, it is living with balance to realize a life of greater purpose. I came across a quote by someone named Richard Gray. The purpose of our lives is to find the purpose for our life. The purpose of our lives is to find the purpose of our lives. So this way of living that we're talking about is balance to realize a life of greater purpose, fulfillment, and lasting satisfactions. So I want to stop here and ask us to think about how convenient, the word convenient is not the same as simplicity. There's a little bit about simplicity that can be misleading, and we'll get into that a little bit more too. But if you think of convenient, here's my example. I'm making something in the kitchen and I have a glass jar, say tomato sauce or pizza sauce or something, a bottle of wine. The most convenient thing for me to do would be to just throw that in the trash. It is not as convenient for me to walk out into my garage where I'm collecting glass, and that later I will drive my car up to 144th and dump the glass into the container there. So how does it make sense to call this a simplicity lifestyle if it's not the most convenient? Do you have a way out of that tangle? Anybody want to explain that?
Only takes stuff to 144th when you're going someplace else.
Okay, so make your trips, put all your trips and errands together to minimize. But the point about simplicity, and I had to wrestle with this a little bit, it doesn't mean the very easiest thing or the most convenient thing or what I've just gotten in a habit of doing. The idea
Maybe
is
the least convenient.
it might be the least convenient. But the simplicity about it is that you know what you stand for. You have decided what's important to you. And so you're not going to be, should I not? What does this make sense? I don't know if I want to do this. It's simplicity in the sense that you have made some decisions about yourself, what you value, and why. So I just want to leave that with you because we have to kind of struggle with, well, this is going to be a lot more work. This isn't going to be so easy. Okay, so once again, simplicity or simpler living is about making a conscious choice for a simpler life. So some practical applications, it covers everything from buying less to buying locally, to maybe growing your own food or some of it, from composting and recycling, to focus on people and relationships, a healthy mind and body, a work-life balance, and connecting with the natural world. So it's connecting with what God desires for us. According to this simplicity lifestyle, personal and social progress is measured not by the conspicuous display of wealth or status, but by increases in the qualitative richness of daily living, the cultivation of relationships, and the development of social, intellectual, aesthetic, and spiritual life. So here are some of the payouts or the benefits of adopting a lower level of consumption. We can gain other life goals such as community or social interactions, more time with family, more time for artistic or intellectual projects, more time for political participation, for spiritual exploration, for reading, contemplation, relaxation, or appreciation of nature by slowing down our pace of living, and a kind of beauty that is spare, clean, pure, and straightforward. So let's look at some misconceptions about voluntary simplicity. It is not a life of poverty. We need to recognize that we don't want to glorify poverty because poverty is debilitating and it's dehumanizing. And so if we have some kind of phony poverty in our mind, I think we're doing injustice to the reality of what so many people actually live with. So let's not call it a life of poverty. It does not necessarily mean rural living. It is not an escapist fad. And it is not an ascetic life, as in a monk who gives up all possessions, wears sandals and same clothes day after day. We're not talking about that kind of a lifestyle. And it also does not mean we renounce all the advantages of science and technology. So it's a simple life is not seeing how little we can get by with. That's poverty. But how efficiently we can put first things first. Victoria Moran says, when you're clear about your purpose and your priorities, you can painlessly discard what does not support these, whether it's clutter in your cabinets or commitments on your calendar. So this lifestyle asks of us, how much is enough? And it is an individual question that we all will need to wrestle with. There is not a one size fits all in this kind of living, simpler living. It is something that each person will think for themselves. It's a philosophy of living based on sufficiency and finding beauty in the words, less is more. It affirms that happiness cannot be purchased. Well, that's a concept, isn't it? Think about the retail shopping. You know, if you aren't feeling good, or if you're feeling bored, or you're feeling kind of out of sorts, go buy something. That's an easy solution in our culture. But we must recognize that consuming things does not satisfy our longing for meaning. Piling up material goods cannot fill the emptiness of lives which have no purpose. Are you beginning to see a little tie-in with the Sermon on the Mount or Jesus' teachings as we're talking about a switch of focus from excessive consumerism to a life with focus on meaning and purpose and relationships? But let's look again at our cultural context. We're bombarded with messages that more is always better. So if you're just not feeling up to it, go buy something. Shop till you drop. So what that produces, and we can see it all around us, is a consumer lifestyle that is overstressed, overbusy, and overworked. Remember, possessions do require time and effort. So it's a countercultural thing to think of simplicity and simpler living, because we're going against the grain of our national, what's that called? What's the thing? National GDP or whatever our economic growth. Our economic growth in our country depends on consumers. Wouldn't it be great if that was switched to depending on service to people?
I saw a sign, and I can't remember the exact words, on an Amazon truck the other day for a van that was delivering Amazon, and it was something like happiness is right here, or something like that. Well, that's not the exact word, but it was shocking to me when I saw that. I go, okay, so in this van,
The happiness van is in your
that's where
neighborhood.
happiness is, right there in that van.
And it wasn't ice cream.
Well, you didn't have to drive your car to get it. But somebody did. They did.
Just click on your credit card. Yeah. So living in a culture that doesn't give us this message at all. And as Christians, we already know that we're countercultural. And this would be another way that we would say no to the culture that's all around us. Because excessive consumerism is resulting in the destruction of our planet. We are watching before our very eyes, not our grandchildren's eyes, but our eyes, the extinction of plants and animals, an impoverished biosphere. We see famine and already forced migration for people who are starving, whose crops fail year after year. And that is only going to continue as we would imagine. So lives of high consumption and accumulation of material things are unethical in a world of great human need. So what is our Christian response? As I mentioned, this will be something individual. I don't have a recipe or a point by point what you should do. I need to do this for myself and you for yourself. All of our lives are different. We have different contexts. We have different settings. Some of us are in different life stages. Although I have to say, as you get older, it's much easier to get rid of stuff. When you have kids and you want to throw away toys, they always find them before you get them sent someplace else and then decide that's what they really want to play with. But as those of us who've gotten older and have done some downsizing, hasn't there been a sense of freedom? So I think you can see some of the value of questioning about stuff, keeping stuff. And then once you downsize, the real trick is keeping it downsized. I found that in my garage. It's like, where did all this stuff come from? And actually, one of my first things I did in COVID was, okay, I'm going to do stuff in this garage. And I have to say, as I keep up with keeping it sorted out, it really is freeing. And so I do see the advantage of that. So let's look at some questions that we can ask ourselves.
I think the way to describe that is possessions are marvelous things that possess us.
Yes, possessions are marvelous things that possess us. Doesn't feel so great that way, does it? So here's some questions we could ask ourselves in terms of reducing our consumption. Are my consumption patterns basically satisfying, or do I buy much that serves no real need? How tied is my lifestyle to installment payments, maintenance and repair costs, and expectation of others? I think that one is one that gets me more, is expectations of others. And the third one, does what I own promote activity, self-reliance, and involvement? Or does it induce passivity and dependence? So here's what I thought of when I thought about activity, self-reliance, and involvement. I went, I am not going to tell the knitters to stop buying yarn. I think buying yarn for the knitters is a great thing because what they do with it. They make prayer shawls and hats for kids in the community. And I'm not going to tell the quilters to stop buying fabric and the batting that goes inside, because those are Lutheran World Relief gifts that we extend across the globe. And I'm not going to tell Gita to stop buying paint because she's artistic and I want to encourage her to use her artistic ability. So the question is, don't stop buying completely, but ask, is what I'm buying just inducing passivity and dependence, just being a couch potato, or is it something that has a more significant purpose for my life? And last, number 4, do I consider the impact of my consumption patterns on other people and on the earth? So now to get a little more practical, here's some ideas from fiercekindness.com. When making a purchase, ask, is this a need or a want? Shop mindfully, and the definition of that would probably be individual for each of you. Grow some food if possible. buy a vegetarian cookbook and maybe try some things. Check how far your food has traveled to get to you. That can be kind of sobering when you want to buy strawberries this time of year, or some of the fruit that it's not grown at this time of the year. Learn about simple living, a more compassionate life, get inspired. And there actually is quite a lot of that on websites and the 2 books that I mentioned. Rediscover the joy of reading. Yay! Watch TV consciously. Build your life around those who are most important to you. Make time for the things you really enjoy regularly. And then the 4 R's: reduce, reuse, repair, recycle. And I would add advocacy. I know it doesn't start with an R, it doesn't seem to fit. If you start clicking on emails that are environmental petitions, you'll get a flood of them about preserving this and saving that and sending off. But you know, it takes so little time. And I do that all the time, but I don't know how much they really are effective, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something. Other advocacy would be probably more influential, would be on advocacy days in Olympia, to go and meet with our representatives and push for any green measures that are being considered by the legislature. So before I turn this over to Linda, who's going to talk about recycling, I thought this would be fun to read together. Can you read it? Okay, let's say it is B attitudes together. Blessed are those who use low energy light bulbs, for theirs is the light of God's wisdom. Blessed are those who travel by light rail, for their lives are on God's track. Blessed are those who choose a car with low fuel consumption, for they are in God's fast lane. Blessed are those who insulate their homes, for theirs is the warmth of God's love. Blessed are you when you put yourselves out to use energy from renewable resources, for you have kindled the flame of the future. So as we said, this conversation and questioning of ourselves will be our Lenten discipline that will be further embellished during the 5 soup supper and Wednesday Lenten services. So I'm going to turn it over to Linda, because the Green Team has a plan to help with some recycling, and she has some other good information for us.
Good morning. So listening to Marilyn, I realized what I did was kind of brainstorm resources that I know about. And then we'll talk about a project that we're considering as a team here as well. But those last 4 R's that Phyllis mentioned, reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle. I'm just speaking to reuse and recycle. And thank you, Phyllis, for talking about reducing. That's our consumption piece is the largest. So a few opportunities for reusing in this area. So first of all, Habitat for Humanity. And Peter's here. He's the one who can tell us more about that. But I know they do pick up for furniture and other things that people might be wanting to get rid of that really should not belong in a dump. Does anybody else know about Abraham's house? I learned about that long ago from Rose Vanderklomp. She had told me about it. It's a charity up in Bremerton. And they take donations, like you can drive there and give them donations. They never sell anything. They have giveaway Saturdays. And so on their Saturdays, people know about it. They come, they have a little church service first, and then they give everything away. They're connected with domestic violence programs and American Red Cross up in Kitsap County. So they will put up apartments for people that need them. They'll take furniture, and I know they sometimes will pick up. I'm not sure if it takes a certain amount of things for them to drive to pick up. I think it's larger items. And then something I've used, anybody who's on Facebook, have you found your local Buy Nothing group? Does anybody know about Buy Nothing? Okay, yeah, Charlene. It's amazing. So my daughter-in-law told me about it because she uses it with her kids' stuff. As her kids outgrow things, she can have people come and just pick it up and get rid of it for her, you know, like somebody that outgrew a baby swing and that kind of thing. So a Buy Nothing is a community organizing group that if you look it up on Facebook, you have to put in your address and you have to find the right one for your area because it's geographically located. So it's supposed to be building community. And anything you want to give away, people can come and pick it up, but they ask anything that you get from the group, you put back into the group when you're done with it. So I've gotten rid of things like, you guys know what hardware cloth is?
Yeah.
That kind of, for like, I had it inside my fence. It's just like a metal, like 1/2-inch square grid fencing kind of thing. I had some that I didn't need anymore and it had been stacked behind my shed for the longest time and I put it out on Buy Nothing. And one of my neighbors came and got it because she's going to use it for her chicken pen to keep her chickens safe. So like things that you would think normally would end up in the trash or you'd have to find a way to recycle, Buy Nothing could be a really good thing. So speaking more about recycling, a couple of the resources I put up here, I don't know if we need to click on, but it's easy to find. Pierce County has different recycling rules than Kitsap County. Everybody is different. Charlene.
I don't mean to interrupt you on that, but
Okay.
Also, now that Fish Food Bank has moved into its new location, they accept just about anything except for furniture. And if you have furniture and you tell them what you have, if somebody calls in looking for it, they'll try and match up. But they will take clothing and blankets and household goods, anything like that. And it's really, you know, everything is free.
So thank you for mentioning that because I didn't think to put it on here, but I was told by a friend that, you know, like if you give money to things and then they send you all the junk mail, like sometimes they'll send you stationery and birthday cards and stuff, Fish will take those. So I've taken even that kind of stuff, like just stationery or gift cards that before I would be recycling, that if somebody can use it, it's far better for somebody to use it.
Also, I think the Buy Nothing group, I don't know, might depend on the group, but I think it's also, if you need something, you can put it out on that group and say, does anybody have an infant swing or whatever it is? So it's both, if you need things and if you want to get rid of things. If you need something, like you don't need to have something new. You can use a used stroller or whatever it is.
Yeah, I believe so too. There's administrators for the group. And so each group might be administrated a little differently because they have rules. Like when I first signed up for my little South Martindale area, I was surprised by all the rules and they will pull down posts that violate the rules. So you don't have to worry about posting something if it's not the right thing because they'll just take it down. But on one of my daughter-in-laws, and this was in Southern California, but one of my daughter-in-law's examples was somebody posted on her Buy Nothing group. A woman in her neighborhood said, my husband is homebound and what we would really like for Christmas is somebody to come by and do carols, like Christmas caroling at my house because her husband couldn't get out. And a whole group of people that did not know them off of Buy Nothing got together and did caroling. So, I mean, it could be that way too. So that, you know, is something that I was really surprised at that they could do. So anyway, recycling venues, the reason it's important to know what you can recycle at home is if there's like quote unquote contamination. I know sometimes they have to throw all the recycling away depending on what goes in those bins that's not supposed to be there. And then our idea, I don't know if does anybody know about the drop-off idea? Or is that just brand new? Okay, so we are thinking about doing a drop-off idea for more recycling that can be done in Tacoma. So I put some of the information up here. The recycling is open to all every day, 8 to 5:30. Hazardous waste in Tacoma is only open Friday through Monday, but it's the same hours. And do you have the one, George, that has the pictures of it, the recycling center? I've been recycling there for a long time. Probably some of you have been over there too.
You need to be a Pierce County resident
For hazardous waste.
for that dump.
Oh, well, for the dump, you need to be a Tacoma City resident to go to the dump, but hazardous waste, they just ask me for my zip code.
Right, but you can't be in Pierce County. You can't be in Kitsap County.
Okay, so for hazardous waste, if you live in Kitsap County, you can find it there. But anybody can recycle. Nobody cares where you live if you're recycling, because you're just helping them sell things. But if you live in Pierce County, you can also take hazardous waste. Gwen?
Do you have on your list Ridwell?
I know about Ridwell. I haven't done Ridwell, so it wasn't on my list, but I know other people here have been doing Ridwell.
We're doing Ridwell, and it's wonderful. They pick up every other Tuesday, and you pay a monthly fee, but it's batteries, light bulbs, and everything. And then every month they have a special thing. This month is anything to do with computer cords, cartridges, and stuff like that. And if you go on their website, you see what they do to recycle where it goes. And
So-
they even take what they call film plastics, like the bag that the newspaper comes in, and bags that your cereal comes in. It's a wonderful recycling.
So one thing I was thinking about, again, listening to Marilyn and Phyllis just this morning, is the Green Team doesn't really have a presence on our website. And it would be great to have somehow, maybe under ministries, have, restoration of creation on there. And because these are the things I know about and I do, but other ideas that other people know about and other things other people are doing, maybe whoever is able to could add to that. And I think it would be great even for the community, for them to see that on our website. I just think it'd be amazing. I don't know how that might happen, but thank you for bringing that up, because yeah, I haven't started doing that, but this is one thing I have been doing for a long time. So the city of Tacoma,
We collect for Ridwell in this community group, and it started out, it all goes to Sally, who takes stuff to Ridwell. We started out with fabric, but then she said, "Don't you take anything that Ridwell had," so we have a bag in there that says Ridwell, just in case you come to church and you've got something you want to send to Ridwell, just go in there and find that bag that says Sally.
and again, that'd be great to have like on the website for everybody to know, because personally, I would have to research to say, what does Ridwell take? Because I don't know.
It's very easy, it's on their website.
Yeah, but thank you, Ronnie, because I didn't know about that. So here's an example. It's a PDF from the Tacoma Recycling Center. And I will say this is already outdated because this was finalized in 2021. So Phyllis did some pictures that I'll show you in a second if we have time. But basically, they say they have certain recycling bins there and things you can put there, but they change it based on, first of all, their buyers, because everything you take there to put in recycling, they should have somebody to buy it. But also they will take like the big styrofoam, like when you buy stuff and it comes packed in styrofoam, they will take it in Tacoma and recycle it. But then at one point they stopped taking it, but the guys that work there, if you just ask them questions, they're very helpful. And he said their machine broke. So they had a machine to process it, and it was during the pandemic and they couldn't get parts. And so it took them the longest time to fix it, but now they're taking it again. So, and George, do you have the pictures? I guess we don't really need them, but the one that shows what it looks like. So our idea for a project would be to do a drop-off day, and anything that they're currently taking to recycle in Tacoma, we would have bins. So here's our example bin over here, and each of the bins would be labeled. So if people chose to, like these #1 plastics, you can recycle at home. But if you didn't, I believe the #2, usually you can recycle those at home. Metal cans maybe, but aerosol?
Can I mention something about that?
Sure.
The way our recycling works with Murray's is by shape, not by the number underneath it. And so there are some #1s and 2s and whatever numbers that the shape of the item, like some takeout things, like those clamshell things that Costco has, or other, like the little plastic ones that you get cherry tomatoes in, that shape is not something that Murray's will take. But with the number underneath, it can be sorted and it can go to the Tacoma landfill. So if we ask people to save stuff and then sort it and then bring it for the bins that we'll have at church, it is a recycling that can be done, that the Green Team will help people with. They can just bring it here and then we will take it over to the Tacoma.
So here's a good good example of why the numbers don't make a big difference. I believe these can be recycled at home, and it's a 1, the pop bottles. These are the 1s and 5s. So in Tacoma, they used to do anything 1 through 7 would go in one bin, and now it's 2 separate bins. So this is the 1 and 5. So these are like the clamshells that Phyllis is mentioning. We can't recycle those at home, but they take them in Tacoma. So you don't have to just throw them in the garbage. They take lids, which I know they don't take over here too. So, and there are pictures, well, the pictures are here, but the pictures also, is there a way, George, that we can get those so that people can take a look at them and know it ahead of time? Because my point is, if you look at the PDF on the Tacoma Recycling Center website, it's not correct right now, but the pictures that Phyllis did are correct.
Yeah, I'll see something get into the either a newsletter or one of the weekly emails, which will have links to those pictures as well.
So this is what I was talking about. Now they have 3, 4, 5, and 7 together. Their metal can one, they do take aerosol spray. So there's kind of a lot of ins and outs of it. And if you look, like all I did was Google it, Mullen Recycling Center, and then some pictures pull up. They have bins for batteries, but the batteries separate out alkaline and rechargeable, so you have to know kind of which goes where. They take cell phone batteries, but I don't know that anybody really needs to recycle. You know, the old cell phones where the battery pack came off the back, I don't know that anybody really needs to do that anymore. But anyway, that was our idea, is if people aren't doing Ridwell, or if they don't know, because I didn't know we had a place where we could bring Ridwell stuff in here, and want to collect some of these recyclables that don't go into your recycling at home, we are talking about doing a drop-off day where the bins would be labeled probably out on the front sidewalk, because there's really no room in the building to collect, to keep things. It would be like, bring it, recycle it, Green Team will help get it over there. But I would also encourage you, if you're in Tacoma, it's off Mullen Street, can you pull up the webpage, like thing that I have that is pretty easy to find? If you've been, like, you know, the Lowe's on Orchard, it's familiar with Tacoma, and you just go around the corner onto Center, and then you take, like, there's a Home Depot back there, that road that goes back to Home Depot, that's Mullen, that's where it is.
One thing we'd like some feedback from you is what would be the most convenient day to bring things in? Because our idea is to process it just in one day. We'll have one day to do this. Would you come back on a Saturday and bring things in on a Saturday? We can sort through them. I've got a big tarp kind of thing that I can put outside, so even if it's wet, we can set up the bins and stuff underneath. Or would it be more convenient to bring it on Sunday when you come to worship? And then again, we'll just have it outside, but we collect it, and a few of us will just load them into our vehicles and take them away that day, so we don't have to keep them at the church for those kind. So we're trying to get feedback. What do we get an idea of what would be the best for people?
One of the problems with all this for me is, boy, it gets complicated. You know, oh, I've got to look over here to find out what over there, and it isn't. And then I go, well, maybe they'll pick it up on this day, and I have to go for it. So for me, Ridwell is the only thing that makes sense. And certainly we are at the level of income that we can afford the cost.
They won't do it, they won't do it, they'll pick up here.
And it's very clear, this, where you have the bag to put whatever it is in, and all you do, we have to do is set it out the other Tuesday.
I think what would be good, I get Ridwell, they don't deliver it to come to my house, so I have them take it to work. And I think they're already, I know of 3 or 4 people. Maybe we just need to get something together to communicate who does this, and maybe we can coordinate something like for those things. And Ridwell doesn't take all of the things that we're talking about too for this recycling process. So there'll be certain types of things they won't, but Ridwell does take a lot, especially fabrics. You have little pieces of clothing. We're always having a wife who's a seamstress. We always have lots of fabrics to put through.
They come out to the Cape Peninsula?
They do not go to the Cape Peninsula. So that's why, again, if there are containers back here for people to have Ridwell, like Sally does, dogs have it, I have it, and glad to share. And sometimes, you know, if you have extra stuff, you can have, if it's the choice of the week, you can have an extra even bag of items. I just set it beside the Ridwell tin, and they take that as well for nothing. Last I heard, the styrofoam at the recycling center, they were accepting it, but they were trashing it. So even Ridwell will take bags. I've done they have huge bags. So you pay $9 to do it, but I mean, it's a gigantic bag full of styrofoam, and they actually find places that will process it,
So, and just to highlight, when we were talking about reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, really recycling is the fourth priority in my mind, but it's still something. When we consider it a crisis, that our planet is in a crisis, the more we can do, the better. And certainly some people are going to do Ridwell, not everybody. And if somebody wants to do recycling and somebody else is already driving to Tacoma and we can share that, you know, I think it's great. But I would encourage everybody, if you're in Tacoma and want to take a look, if you're in that part of town, if you just drive through there, you'll see kind of how it's set up. It's very simple. But we're happy to help with that if it helps some people. Yeah, Phyllis. I mean, sorry, Marilyn. Whose hand is up?
Up first. I'm thinking that we could make this a broader appeal in the community. Like if we did it on a Saturday, I mean, and we had a, you know, regular recycling here. They would even put it on the city website. Tracy Markley does this 5 things going on every week. So we could make it broader than just our church for people to bring things here. And I think a Saturday would be the time that, you know, people are out and about and could bring it up here. So I think it would be really good if we got the word out to not only our community, but the greater community as well.
So, George, do you mind going back to my Word document for just a minute? So, Marilyn, that's a great idea from an education point of view. Like, it might be great if it went out to the general community to say, Battery Saturday, you know, and then the next time, Plastic Saturday, so that they would learn like one thing at a time. Because honestly, what Daryl said is true. It gets complicated. And like I shared this story with Phyllis. We used to try to do this in the kitchen like long ago, watch Special Recycling to Tacoma. And I got the batteries once, and I mean, like they were oozing acid and they were all mixed in. Some of them were supposed to go in this bin, some of them that, and I didn't have gloves, and it was just like, it was awful. So the sorting piece needs to be on who brings it, not on us to resort it once we get there. And I mean, that might sound like a little thing, but that's really an education piece. So, I mean, that's just something to think about. So I put some other things in here, the batteries I put on, light bulbs. You guys, if you still love the compact fluorescent light bulbs, they are a hazardous waste because there's mercury in there. They take those in Tacoma, I guess, for Pierce County residents. They used to take them at Home Depot. I haven't looked for a while, but maybe they still do. And then Best Buy has a recycling program for electronics and appliances. I don't know if you know about that, but they're great. Like I've taken in my printer that broke down. They just took it, an old radio. They'll take stuff like that. You just walk into customer service. So, I mean, the more we share what we each have learned about or we each are using, I think it's just better for everybody.
Yeah, Ace Hardware will take the fluorescent bulbs too. I've taken those, I think only 5 or 6 at a time, but every day you can go if you had them. So I've taken them from work as well.
Suggestion, could this slide be put on the church website or Facebook page?
I think what I'm hearing right now is we need to have really a good educational place that we can provide a lot of this information, even going over descriptions of how to sort things and what things would be better sorted in certain kinds of containers even. So I think it's, you know, we have a lot of work to do here to put it together. So.
And it would be really cool to lead off with the resolution, you know, for the purpose of it. And then the action piece, like this would be the action piece, but I think the resolution is really the important mindset part.
I don't know how many of you are following legislature right now, but there's this RAP Act that's going through the legislature, and it has to do with recycling. within the state, and even how to make it more convenient for people. And I will just point out that there's been a lot of negativity about it from recycling companies because they think they're going to lose business, and that what they're doing is effective. Within a half mile of where I work, right, in Gig Harbor on the Cushman Trail, right by the Goodwill station where you'd get on. Within a half mile in the last 2 weeks, I've collected 100 glass bottles and 141 aluminum cans, and 13 plastic bottles, and I haven't gotten them all yet. So, if you get an opportunity to support that act, I think it's an appropriate thing to advocate for.
Just a little piece of inspiration. I saw an article that, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Climate Pledge Arena they've a partnership going now, the Kraken with the Muckleshoot tribe, that they're going to be supporting Kraken. And they said they're so happy to do it, especially in the Climate Pledge Arena, which is now using 99% of the waste going to composting and recycling. So they have 1% of the waste from that entire arena going to landfill. So, and I mean, that's about packaging and how they're purchasing things. And so, like, I know there's a lot of just people in the community looking towards more zero waste. So all of this makes a difference if it doesn't go in the landfill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. We got some more work we can do in developing our simpler lives and supporting creation advocacy.
You could just put the pictures in your bin in case you want them. I'll put them over here. Okay. Yeah.
Cheers.